We still do 7 NUFC Matters show a week for free. But if you want to help support NUFC Matters, then there are a few ways of doing it. Hit the like button on each live broadcast and video. This helps the channel grow. Hit the subscribe button and select the all notifications bell so you don't miss a single show. If you want to help us financially, then you can join the channel using this button with the membership starting at $1.99 a month. Or you can drop us a donation in the chat using a super sticker. We're also looking for sponsors. If you'd like your brand advertised on the flyers for the show and featured during the ad break, then email John at nufcmatters.com to arrange today.
A big thanks to all our sponsors: Skips and Bins, telephone 0800 25 45 25 3, email inquiries at skipsandbins.com, website skipsandbins.com, easy contract free and pay-as-you-go waste collection. Thanks again to Mr. Vicky's Sauces, handmade in Cumbria. If you'd like to order some, then give them a call on 01768 210 102. Go to the website mrvickys.co.uk or drop them an email, info@mrvickys.co.uk. A big thanks to United Group Travel. They're a family firm based in Morpeth with pickups throughout the northeast. No strangers on our tours, just people you haven't met yet. They've got a presence on Facebook and a website, unitedgrouptravel.com. If you want to make a booking, give them a call on 01670 632 460 or mobiles 0791 666 4174 0795 71 41654. Thanks to Darren Baldwin Funerals, independent funeral directors. Let us look after you in your time of need. They're based on Old Durham Road in Gateshead, and you can contact them at their website, darrenbaldwinfunerals.co.uk. Email Darren at darrenbaldwinfunerals.co.uk or give them a call, 0191 478 2730. A big thanks to Media Arts for all the help with the technical side of things. And a big thanks to New Workwear. You can find them at newworkwear.com. If you want to help the channel, hit the thumb up to subscribe, hit the subscribe button, and share to your other social media. You can also pay a one-off fee of £25 to get a scarf, a cup, a pen, and a membership card. Go to the website, nufcmatters.com, and click membership, or put your smartphone over this QR code. We also support the food bank on this channel. If you want to make some donations virtually, go to nufcfansfoodbank.co.uk and make a donation today. We're also a podcast on Spotify, iTunes, and other podcast providers. Just search NUFC Matters. I'm also a part of the Northeast Footy Brekkie Show. You can listen to that Monday to Friday, 7 till 9 at therapeutic.com.
Attack. It feels like I've been talking to myself again, but it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you.
Good evening. Welcome along to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith, a live Q&A. I promised I would do more of these in 2024. Caught a few of you out, I would imagine. I'm back in the house slightly earlier, and let me just check to make sure my sound levels are up. Yep, they are. I'll just touch it up a little bit there. But yeah, I promised I would do a few more of these if I had time. So yeah, here I am, back in the house about an hour and a half earlier than I expected. So questions, get them in, and I will do my best to answer them. And if I can't, I won't. First, good evening to Les. Good evening to Rob. Good evening to Gary. So you in the chat there. First question was from Rob. When did NUFC Matters start? How long ago? And do you remember your first show? Well, the answer to that is yes. It started just before COVID. 2019 was the very first concept idea of NUFC Matters. And it was after seeing a few podcasts spring up online. Most of them had been unsuccessful, the Newcastle United podcasts. And there was none for this a certain age demographic, i.e. old farts like us. I speak for myself there, of course. Some of you are younger than me, but ultimately, it was just an idea which stemmed from seeing other people's podcasts and spotting a gap in the market. Not one for Newcastle United fans of a certain age, of a certain vintage. So I approached Supermac. At the time, I had an office in Newcastle upon Tyne. I needed an office really for storage, and I had the office in Newcastle for the best part of 13 years. Went in originally with another company. They eventually moved out the office. They ended up running their business from home, and I ended up in the office on my own, and turned into a bit of a shrine for Newcastle United, if I'm being honest. But I asked Malcolm McDonald if he'd be up for doing something and pop into the office once a week to do like a prototype for a show. And if it worked and if it took off, then we would continue to do it and hopefully reap the benefits. And he was up for it. I mean, obviously Malcolm's got a wealth of experience scoring goals for Newcastle United, but also and as a footballer, but a wealth of doing broadcasting when he did the Three Legends on Century, which I notice is coming back for one night only. Bernie Slavin is publicising that quite heavily at the minute. But yeah, we did it. I just basically took in a MacBook Pro. We sat in the office side by side in chairs, and we just did 15-20 minutes chat about Newcastle United, and we put it out and set up a YouTube channel, put it on the YouTube channel, and it only got about 400 views maximum. There was no intro. It was very rough and ready. It was literally me and Malcolm just talking, just to see what kind of feedback we got from people. Feedback was positive, but there wasn't enough people watching for my liking. We continued to do that for 3 or 4 weeks, and then I spoke to a couple of my people, my mates who worked in production, and they were looking to get involved in something to build their portfolio up. That meant that we had 2 cameras. We had an opportunity for them to use the technology and broadcast it live on YouTube. We had an introduction, an intro and an exit from the show. It just had an air of professionalism, which meant that Malcolm and Gibbo could come to my house. We brought Gibbo on board because Gibbo and Malcolm, as you know, they've done talk-ins for years, both good friends, and we just felt that me, Gibbo, and Malcolm would make a good combination. So they came to my house. We did about 6 or 7 of them. We'd do it on a Thursday evening. It was a bit of a faff on, for want of a better expression, because obviously the guys had to come. The camera crew had to come and set up, which took about half an hour. You commandeer in a room in your house. Well, you can imagine how that goes around, with your family. You're trying to, have your tea, and families wanting to get around and do their business. And it's just, it was awkward. It was difficult. Not the greatest of ideas. It looked great. And I mean, all of these programs are on our YouTube channel. Let me have a drink. But ultimately, it looked good. But ultimately, with all that faff, we were still only getting the same amount of views, 300, 400, which was disappointing. Coming to the end of the season, I just decided to knock it on the head. So NUFC Matters was dead before it started, really. And it was lockdown where where I decided to resurrect it. So the first show was with Malcolm in my office in 2019. In February 2019, but the first NUFC Matters in its current format, if you like, in the sense that the resurrection of it, not the prototype, was with Neil Mitchell on Instagram, the Geordie dentist who does the Amigos on a Friday, does the Professionals on a Sunday, and does Geordie's here, Geordie's there on a Wednesday normally. We started doing our own chats, just me and him, on Instagram during lockdown, and that was the very first one. We had 1,000 people tune in to me and Neil talking Newcastle United. Fascinating, absolutely crazy. It was a bit out of control because it was on Instagram, Comments were coming in and didn't really, it was a struggle keeping up the comments. Obviously you were getting a few trolls on there as well, which was difficult to control. But, once I got the knack of how to, to block people in the chat who were being, ridiculous. You were getting people from different football clubs calling us various names, etc. It just became an absolute nightmare. But I managed to get round it, worked it out. And at that time, I'd never really broadcast live on Instagram. So this was a first. By the time we got through to, my dad managed to, I think, get copies of those early shows. But by the time I'd done 3 or 4 broadcasts, I had the option then of being able to save it and download it. So I then thought, well, now that I've got copies of these, maybe if I stick them on YouTube, we might be able to get a bit of interest. We'll stick them up on the NUFC Matters channel and see where we go. And that's where it started, Rob. It literally was because of lockdown. People were wanting to listen about Newcastle United 7 days a week, 24/7, and I was getting lots of messages within the first couple of weeks to say that it was a massive help. They loved the shows, and I started with me and Mitch. I added Steve Hasty to the mix, which is how the three amigos was born. But then I dipped into my little black book of contacts and spoke to former players. So I was getting ex-players on: Lee Clark, Rule Fox, Steve Howie, Rob Lee, John Beresford, to name a few. And then I started going into journalists. I got Liam Kennedy from the Gazette. I got another contact, Ross Gregory from the Evening Chronicle. Ben Jacobs started to become quite a name on Twitter, so I asked him on the show, and I also dipped into the other kind of interviews. I got David Icon, Tom Stoltman, World's Strongest Man. Obviously, I did a few on true crime as well, following in Sean Atwood's footsteps and interviewing a few people from those departments, and it just spiraled. And I used it as an opportunity to help my mental health over lockdown, but also to help other people's. And we raised money for. I remember one year we raised money for children in need. We did we did a show where we specifically just plugged children in need. We all did something daft on screen, and we raised £1,000 on the night from people watching in the chat. People just made a donation, and we wrote a check out for £1,000 for children in need, which was absolutely brilliant. So we did that. We did Think Before You Tweet, which was a huge campaign. We got two Newcastle fans who trolled each other relentlessly on Twitter at the time. We got them sat down in a bar and together, and I interviewed both of them, and then I introduced them to each other, and then we recorded that introduction, which is still up there. Think Before You Tweet. It unmasked faceless accounts and gave them an opportunity to sit down and sort their differences out man to man, and show that really away from a screen, people could sort their differences, which was the whole point of doing it. It was ahead of the curve, really, and we were pleased that we did it, and it was something which we're immensely proud of. And then since then, we've helped the food bank, for a couple of years over lockdown, when donations at the ground were at a minimum. We were putting T-shirts up for auction on the channel, and selling them for anything from £50 to £250, and donating that money to the food bank, where we raised thousands for them. And again, just something as simple as that. Thanks to Johnny Allen, who is part of the team now. We just managed to make a difference. So yeah, something positive to come out of something negative, i.e. the lockdown, but also something positive to come out of an idea which I'd had in 2019, which I didn't forget about it. I just found the right time to bring it back, and thanks to people like you who are watching tonight, and who watch every night, it's become a big success. So where can it go? Could we make anything more of it? But possibly, but there's no need to rush. There's no need to want to be anywhere other than where we're at the moment. And for me personally, it gives me an opportunity to come on and say what I want to say about Newcastle United, somewhere where I can't be misquoted. What I say on here is what I say, and ultimately for me, it's that's important, because as a football club does, it sometimes makes decisions which you're not happy with, and it gives us the opportunity to be the critical friend on here. A phrase which with permission, I've always stolen from Neil Mitchell and from Steve Hasty, you know, as supporters, we are the critical friend to Newcastle. There's nothing wrong with criticising the owners. There's nothing wrong with criticising the manager from time to time, but do it in a sensible way, in a proper way, and you know, justify your reasons behind it. And, you know, no one can ever say you're wrong because there's always more than one opinion. So that's what NUFC Matters is about. The catchphrase "NUFC Matters," it really does, that I gave it as well, is from the heart. You know what I mean? That's what it means. And yeah, great question, Rob. But I hope that gives you a solid answer. Les, hi Rob, hi Steve. What do you think about Sir Jim Ratcliffe wanting taxpayers' money to rebuild Old Trafford? I think it's funny, isn't it, how things have developed at Manchester United. I think Mitch and Stu and Steve in particular have spoken many times on their various shows on here about, you know, the takeover at Manchester United not being what Manchester United fans think it is. And that, you know, as long as the Glazers have any control at Manchester United, it's not going to be plain sailing. And I think that's what we're seeing. So Jim Ratcliffe has come in. He's got a percentage, a nice chunk, but he doesn't have overall control. And will he ever have overall control? I think the lads told you on here as well that ultimately the takeover by the Qataris was never going to happen, and they were right on that score. Not quite tire kickers, but not far from it. And the sheikh might as well have been the fake sheikh that we saw from the News of the World. It was that embarrassing. So to hear that Jim Ratcliffe, and I'm not sure what your source is, potentially allegedly wants taxpayers' money to rebuild Old Trafford, I find it amusing. It's probably what I would say, Les, with regards to that. Big Billy, I hope you're well. Nice to see you back in the chat. Not seen you for a while. Kevin, I hope you are well, sir. Big Billy says, Steve, do you think Newcastle for the top four? Not this season, mate. Definitely not. Go back to the start of the season. I was very confident that we would hit top four again, that we would have a good run in the Champions League, and that we would get to another cup final. With the injuries that we've had, Billy, you need to reassess that. And in January, my prediction was that Newcastle would finish top six, would qualify for Europe, and would get to the FA Cup final. I'll stick with that. We need a favourable draw in the FA Cup, of course. We need to get past a tricky tie against relegation-threatened Blackburn. And then we need a home draw, and hopefully not against one of the big, not against one of the big four, if you like. You want to avoid Manchester City and Liverpool at all costs, certainly until the final. But yeah, I think that Newcastle qualifying for Europe is more than possible. We aren't far off the European spots. The 4-4 draw against Luton was disappointing, but would we have settled for 4 points out of that 2-game fixtures, Aston Villa and Luton? Of course we would. And of course we've got a right to supporters to be disappointed that we only got 4 points when we won at Villa. But you're doing Luton a discredit, because Luton played very well at the weekend and were deserving of that point. They will feel probably, they'll probably feel that they should have got all 3. But for me personally, I thoroughly enjoyed the game of the weekend, and I think that 4 points out of those 2 games is acceptable, and we move on. We have to put it right at Forest. We need to get 6 points really now at the next 2 games, just to keep in contention with the European spots. But yeah, I still think Europe, but not top 4. Doug, good evening, says, thank God for the old farts. Les says, have you heard anything about the status of John Tudor suffering dementia issues? It was related to heading the ball, just so Supermac might have. I'll ask Supermac on Thursday, mate. I do know that John hasn't been of good health with dementia, and I'm not sure of an update, but I will ask Malcolm about that. If you can remind us on Thursday, Les, that'll be fine. Taylor, good evening. Great insight, Steve, as to how it got going, and appreciate you sharing. One of my favourite shows, listening to the 3 of you shoot the breeze. Yeah, Taylor, you know what? To have 2 legends like, and you might be talking about Supermac and Gibbo, I presume you are, not Steve and Mitch, although those guys are legends in my eyes. Supermac and Gibbo, yeah. I mean, it's an honour for me to share the screen with them, Taylor. And I mean, Supermac's not my era. I was born in 72 and Supermac was at his pomp then. And, you know, I only ever got to see the footage that you guys can see of Supermac. Gibbo is somebody that I got to know very, very well in the very early 90s when I was a fanzine editor. And Gibbo was writing a lot for the Pink and the Chronicle. I got to know him on one front and one front only, and that was to promote my events that I was doing. And it was very early days that I was doing events. And people say, how did you get involved with doing events with ex-players? Well, it was all down to the fact that I managed a Sunday football team for 20 years. And anyone who tells you, you know, anyone who has managed a Sunday football team or any sports team of any type will know that you need money to run those teams. And when it's a football team, you need to have money for your nets, for your pitch hire, for your strips, for your water bottles, for your medical kit, for your flags, you know, you name it. You need to have money for your changing facilities. So I basically had to, as the manager of the football club, find those funds, find those sponsors. And sponsors were easy to find for strips, but not for everything else. So what we would do is we would take subs off the players, you know, usually a couple of quid a game. That would go into the pot, and at the end of the season, the players get a payout. It was almost like a savings club. They wouldn't get much back. You know, anything between 40 and 50 quid each, the lads probably would get back each season. But that money gave you the money to pay the referee each week, and you know, and pay for your fees. But you still needed, you know, you needed to have like a presentation night. So that's how I got started with Supermac. Really, I got Gibbo's number at the Chronicle, which was easy to get then. Gibbo advertised me event, and I got Gibbo gave me Supermac's number to get Supermac to come and do the presentation, and that's where my knowledge of how to do an event came about, you know. And the fact that I thought, okay, you can get, you know, you get a star, you agree a fee, you sell tickets, and you know, the rest is history. And that was where I started doing events. And it's bizarre to think that I went from, you know, worrying about having to find, you know, £150 to pay Supermac at an event at the Portland Arms in Felon to hand out some trophies, to going to do, you know, an event at Kingston Park with, you know, bringing back the entertainers to play Liverpool legends and, you know, raising over, you know, 40 grand for charity. Bizarre. And you know, the worries and concerns of doing those two events, and the logistics of organising two football teams, getting them into hotels, getting them up to the area, getting them on the pitch, getting them off, getting them to the ground, away from the ground, and then taking them out for the night out afterwards. Wow, you know, going back to doing the Supermac gig for 150 quid and just hoping he turned up in his car outside the Portland to come and hand some trophies out. Big difference. But yeah, I mean, you know, that was where my friendship began with those two, and me and Malcolm subsequently went on to do lots of talkings together, either with or without Gibbo. And I'd met Malcolm a few times prior to that, and I've still got it on videotape. We did a program on TV, which was the Three Legends, but it was on TV with Supermac, Gibbo, and Gatesy, Supermac, Gatesy, and Bernie Slavin, sorry. And it was around about the time that Kieran Dyer and Craig Bellamy were playing for Bobby Robson at Newcastle. And Supermac was asked a question about, you know, who he would sell in the summer. And Shearer was at the club as well. And he said all of them. Typical Supermac answer, you know. And I went at him live on TV. So, you know, I said he was stuck in a time warp. And that his ideas of football were of a certain age, and it was a proper set to between me and Malcolm. He looked shocked, but I don't think Malcolm ever forgot me from that. And we just, you know, we've laughed about it since. But yeah, amazing how we actually got to become good friends, and you know, subsequently go on to work together and work with each other many times. But it's an absolute honour to share the screen with the two of them, and I think most of you in the chat often have a laugh when I'm on, because who's that guy in the middle who doesn't say anything? Well, who wants to see anything when you've got those two talking football? You know, it's probably the easier show for me to do. I think some people get some people say to us away from the screen, God, you want to tell John to let Malcolm speak a bit more. But I think when they both get a bit between their teeth, they're both quite good at talking over the top of each other. But no, I'm honoured to have those two on the shows. You know, people have often said, what's your favourite show on the channel? Well, obviously I love doing the Amigos, because that's working with me two mates, and it's like being down the pub and having a bit of crack. But you know, just sitting listening to Gibbo and Supermac wax lyrical about Newcastle, what an honour that is. You know, it's a show you never want to end. You know, a lot of people say, can you not do an hour and a half? But yeah, an hour is all we need, I think, with those two, and it's absolutely fascinating. And we are going to announce a date in the summer, a weekend date, something a little bit different, but Super Matt and Gibbo are going to be part of that. So I'll keep you posted when we've got the poster ready for that. John Woodmass says something which he thinks I'll read out and get ridiculed. But I won't. It's not that kind of podcast. We do our research on here, John. But thanks for your input. Paul, good evening, mate. I hope you're well. Les says, today I saw Brentford criticism of Twitter, other platforms for failing to address bullying and harassment, etc. in any effective way. How can we as users report abuse other than ticking a box that does now? I've got to be honest, Les, it's, you know, X is it's a lot easier now to report accounts than it was when it was Twitter 6-7 months ago. I genuinely think that they are taking it more seriously, but still not seriously enough. Unless you know who the person is and you have proof that you know who the person is who is perhaps harassing, bullying, trolling, whatever you want to call it, then, you know, the only thing you can do is involve the authorities. But I will tell you now that the authorities, you know, will do very little. And I think you probably need to watch, Les, the programs on ITV. You'll be able to get them on ITVX about social media murders, the TikTok murder, the two Asian women, the mother and daughter, who, you know, basically, you know, were convicted of running a car off the road, and, you know, two Asian males dying. I mean, that shows you the extremes that the people on social media will go to, you know. It's quite frightening, and it is quite unnerving. But until the major companies like Elon Musk's X, and you know, the likes of Meta with Instagram and Facebook, and Mark Zuckerberg's involvement with those two companies, until they start taking responsibility, we're always going to be in this. We're always going to be in this position. It does show that if a lot of people report a particular account, if you've got friends who are willing to help you report a certain account, accounts do get taken down. But I just see the same old accounts getting restarted. So it's the IP address really that should be hit. I think really there should be a 3 strikes and you're out. If you are bullying, harassing, or abusing somebody, and your account's IP address is registered as being taken off a particular platform on 3 occasions, then I think that's when you should be barred from that particular social media platform. I think it's as simple as that. And let's face it, technology is that good that if any of us were willing, if any of us put up Isaac scoring a goal in a live game at the weekend, if the Premier League have the capability of seeing that and having an algorithm to remove that immediately, then there is clearly enough technology out there for, you know, for an account to be, an IP address to be found, verified, and removed. So I agree with the Brentford criticism. I just think that there's a long way to go, and it needs to be the likes of Zuckerberg and Musk who sort it out. Tim, good evening. Steve, any funny stories whilst you worked on the doors, or any stories surrounding footballers? I'm always looking to give footballer stories. I mean, I was there the night that, and stuff that's been in the papers, I guess. I was there the night that one former footballer who was Welsh was in C nightclub, and he was standing with a few of the other players of that period, and a local hard man who had been to the match came up to the VIP area where the guys were, and he systematically went round and asked politely all of the players in the VIP to sign his programme. He got to this Welsh player, and this Welsh player said, "Say please," to the aforementioned guy. And the guy looked at him and said, "What?" And he went, "Say please, or I'm not signing your programme." To which point, the former Newcastle player from Wales found himself a little bit taller than he usually is, because he was pinned to the wall by the aforementioned hard guy who did get his programme signed, it has to be said. Other stories with regards to footballers. There was another footballer who once had a bust up on a pitch at St James's Park with another footballer. This guy has been in the jungle, and he once went out the back of C nightclub, and if it hadn't been for me, would have been flattened by a car, because he just was absolutely K-lined, didn't look left or right, and if I hadn't been behind him as I was going round closing up, locking the gates as it was closing time, he was heading over to the Cooperage. If I hadn't grabbed his shoulder, he would have been flattened by a car coming round the corner off the Swing Bridge. On the same night in question, I didn't see it, but it's obviously been well reported that the player came out after being escorted from the Cooperage and burnt a £20 note in front of a Newcastle fan. So yeah, plenty of stories from that era in particular. Other funny stories from the door. I'm just trying to think of some clean stories that I can give you without breaking community guidelines. There's not many really. I do remember on one occasion. Let's think. Yeah, there was. I mean, obviously, I was head doorman at Chase, and I remember coming downstairs once, and we were told that there was a guy in the toilets who hadn't come out the cubicle. Now, when that happens, you expect that person's either comatose and collapsed, they're taking drugs, or something else. So we went in, and this guy, when we shouted, banged on the door, there was no answer. I had to kick the door in. The door goes in. The guy's on his knees, with his pants down, facing the toilet. I've got to be careful how I say this, but he stood up, he turned round, and obviously had no pants on, and he had in his hand part of his anatomy. In his other hand, he had something which looked like a Malteser. And it wasn't until I looked down onto the toilet seat and saw similar balls which looked like Maltesers around the toilet seat, I realised what he was doing. So I'll leave that to your imagination. But what I will say is that was a close encounter of the turd kind. I'll leave that with you. Yeah, not a very pleasant one if you're having your tea. Tim says, been with the NUFC Matters team from the early stages. It's been my introduction of YouTube. It is the best NUF stream by far. Tim, honestly, thanks, mate. And you're one of the regular contributors with like lookalikes and stuff like that. So thank you very much. Rob says, thanks for sharing NUFC Matters story. Certainly helps my mental health. A great variety of your shows. Thank you. You are appreciated, mate. Just want to give a big shout out to Rob, because Rob was introduced to me by a mutual acquaintance. He asked if he could get involved in some way, shape, or form, or if I could help him, or if I could just talk to him. And when we had a chat, we discovered we've got both got a good wide range and taste in music. And at the time, I was looking for somebody to do a music section. Rob's in a band, setting a band up at the time, and I just said if he fancied doing it, and he was very honest. He's had battles with his mental health, but that doesn't bother me. He's an intelligent guy. He's a great guy. He's got a lot to offer, and you know, from my perspective, to you know, that's what this platform has always been about, giving people perhaps who haven't had the opportunity but haven't had confidence, just to get them on board and be able to do it. And I think I've always listened to you guys out there as well. As most of you know, as I mentioned earlier, this used to be, you know, football and true crime. And there were some people saying to me, you need to separate them. You shouldn't be doing it. And I couldn't really see the wood for the trees on that. And I got sucked into the, you know, to doing more true crime stuff, which I know some of you miss. But I should have listened to those people. I should have continued building the NUFC Matters brand right from the start and not got sucked into the Sean Atwood, James English kind of side of things. And although I enjoyed it, I never enjoyed it as much as doing the football, because the football comes naturally to me. I can sit and talk till the cows come home about Newcastle United, whereas true crime needed a bit of research, which I found interesting. But you know, and I had a good knowledge of certain crimes and criminals. But you know, I should have listened to people and I should have moved on. But you know, none of us is perfect, and you learn what you learn. But getting away from Rob, we decided to launch his show in the way that it was 10-15 minutes, and you know, it was great. But I think we both know that the views weren't great. It didn't bother me, because you know, views are views, and you know, if you get 150 or if you get 200 or if you get 10, it doesn't matter. It means you've put a bit of time and effort into doing something, but people have watched it. But my mindset was always to try and incorporate, if Rob was up for it, into another show. So we've done that now. And talk of the tune, you know, you have to wait until maybe someone comes along who you think, actually, that person would be good for this. And Sid, who's come on board, is a long-term friend of mine. He's got music in his bones as well as Newcastle United. And I just thought this would make a good combination. So if you watch it, if you haven't watched it, please give it a watch. We recorded it, and pre-record I know is not best on here. I know you guys all like it live, but if you watch it, just give it a watch and give it a like, give it a share, because you know, it's a good show. But yeah, Rob's a great addition. Sid's a great addition. Pleased to call them both mates. And yeah, no, thanks for that, Rob. Much appreciated. Barry, good evening. He says, all right, Steve, I listened to the breakfast show down in Kent. Such a great bunch of lads. Yeah, Barry, thanks for that. The breakfast show has been fantastic, you know, and I wasn't sure whether it would be, I wasn't sure whether it would be a success or not. I think the one thing is that I'm not a narcissist. What I am, though, is a professional, and I do like to be in charge of things. I've always produced better stuff when I've worked for myself and not worked with other people in the sense of the organisation side of it, not necessarily in the presenting side of it, Barry. And when I was approached by Dave Roberts to do that show, I'd known Dave for best part of 25 years. He used to work for Sky years ago, and I used to do the when I was quite prevalent on Sky Sports News, as you know, talking about Newcastle or stuff. Dave was up in the northeast; he was a correspondent. But he approached me last year, and I was like, "Great idea, great concept." We met up, we had a coffee, and you know, I waited and waited, and it was slightly later than we expected, but it was late August when he launched it, and we had the Borough guy who's fantastic, Rai from Australia. I wasn't sure how it was going to work. Somebody who doesn't see the games, somebody who doesn't go to the games, is he going to have the knowledge? But you know, he's fantastic, Rai. He's full of enthusiasm. Complete polar opposite to me as far as the way that he presents, but he's you know, he's a great guy. We struggle to get a Sunderland fan. I had a bit of paranoia in that, thinking maybe that's down to me, because I know I'm not very popular on Wearside, and I just thought, you know, maybe that's part of the problem. But we got one kid who came on, Maka, who was okay. He was a Hibs and Sunderland fan, and he came and he talked, and he wasn't on all the time, but he didn't quite gel with me and Rai, which was, you know, which is half the battle. You have to be able to bounce off each other. And we'd had a guy called Ted, who, you know, had been on one or two shows, who was great, but he just couldn't commit with work. And we ended up just asking Dave if he could go back to him. And he lives in Cyprus, of course, staunch Sunderland fan. You know, when he was in this country, went to all the games, but now lives in Cyprus full time. And it's been an amazing journey. We've done over 100 shows now. It's an early start. It means, you know, we're up early, but you know, we're live 7 till 9. on the toonradio.co.uk. But I think you can tell there's a chemistry there between us guys. And we just appreciate the support, you know. It's hard because we don't know what the viewing listening figures are, but you know, the station has certainly improved, and we're seeing other breakfast shows suffer. So hopefully that's because people are listening to us. But that channel's got some great shows on it, you know, the Three Legends, with Darren Williams, Craig Hignett and Lee Clark, once a week. You know, Daz does the mid-morning show, which is really, really good, really funny. But yeah, I appreciate that, Barry. You know, I'm glad people are enjoying it, and you know, if you can stomach you know, more than 1 hour of Steve Wraith and co, then give us a listen, you know, give us a listen on a morning. David McLeod, good evening, mate. Yes, the day's gone very well, mate. Been very, very productive. Been nothing I can talk about, and it's something which I do voluntarily. But two things, two long days, 2 12-hour days, David. Yeah, gone very well. Hi, Steve. Do you think the owners will challenge the new PSR rules? Well, there've been the meetings, Derek, haven't they? Yesterday and today. So I think we will hear in due course, you know, what the collective decision is, but we always hear what is going on with regards to our club. So yeah, I do think the owners will challenge the new PSR rules, but it'll be interesting to hear what the results are. Taylor, hi. Thoughts on our 2 new inductees to the Hall of Fame? Yeah, sorry I never got back to you, mate. I did see your message, but yeah, I've been very, very busy the last 2 days. I mean, look, Nobby Solano deserves it, of course. Mexico Martin is the other inductee. I do laugh when I see this Hall of Fame because it was me and my company Newcastle Legends, which I had at the time, which started off this Hall of Fame. We held 2 events at James's Park, and then when the foundation was formed, they started their own Hall of Fame. So you know, I know imitation is flattery, but it's listen, well done to the lads. Congratulations to them. I did text Nobby last night. You know, and I know he's happy with it. But yeah, it's a great concept, great idea, and it raises good money for the foundation. But yeah, well done to both of them. Stephen Kennedy, good evening. Noticed a load of other podcasts are talking about Chelsea situation and stating all the facts that Mitch, Mr. Hasty, and Stu covered months ago. NUFC matters well ahead of the rest. Yeah, Stephen, we don't blow our own trumpet. We'll leave you to do that. And I don't mean just you. I mean collectively, the people who watch this channel. Yeah, you know, the lads are ahead of the curve, mate, and they know what they're talking about. And I'm a conduit to a lot of it. Been going mad with them actually, because they're all, you know, I keep getting added to WhatsApp groups, and I'm not a fan of WhatsApp groups. You know, the Northeast Footy Brekkie show's got one, NUFC Matters has got one. I've got a few for the individual shows on NUFC Matters, none of which are being created by me. And I hate being in WhatsApp groups. So I've now muted all my WhatsApp groups. I can't stand them. But when I do occasionally dip into the ones that I can be bothered to read, I do find that the lads have already predicted what they're talking about on the show, you know, and it's usually months ahead of the curve. And that's why they're on. They're on because they're my mates, but they're on because they know what they're talking about. And we don't lead you up the garden path. We didn't do it with a takeover, and we've not done since. And we know a lot more about our football club sometimes than we let on. Sometimes it's best though to say nothing, and just watch the mess unravel around you. And I'd say that the events on Twitter yesterday probably, again, without dipping into it, prove what we've been saying for years about certain organizations and groups. Stuff that was probably leveled at me for years, about being, how can I put it, milking supporters and you know, taking the money, making money out of Newcastle United's name from supporters. This is me doing events for charity, by the way, or whatever. People always adding their own slant to it, and you know, and finding a way to criticize me or having a pop at me. I think the mask is unveiled more and more, as time goes on without me having to say anything and without the lads having to say anything. And sometimes it's just, as I say, it's the right thing to do, just to sit back and watch other people self-destruct. And I think we're seeing that within our fan base a lot at the moment, especially on social media. But it's why we just stay in our own lane. It's why we stay in our own lane. We'll continue to be ourselves. We continue to be the critical friend of the club, and we'll continue to be independent of the club. None of us have got any hopes or dreams of ever been any closer to the club than we are now. And I think that I think that's probably the best way to be with this owner or any owner. Because if you're passionate about the club and you love the club as much as we do, then you can never be in bed with a club. And it's always best to be that critical friend standing on the opposite side of the street, pointing out the deficiencies, pointing out what they've done right, pointing out what they've done wrong, and giving them an honest view on it. And I think that's probably the best thing. But yeah, you are right on that score, Stephen. What capacity stadium could a successful Toon hold? Top 6 or better? What capacity stadium could a successful Toon hold? George, I think Newcastle's stadium, if they're going to build a new one, or when they build a new one, because I think this is where the club are trying to push us anyway. Our record crowd was 68,000. We currently hold 52. I think we'd be stupid to go any bigger than 70, 75. I think, is there going to be a demand for it? Who's to say that in the future we can't fill it? It's got to be practical, and a football stadium has to be built with maybe other things in mind as well. Gigs, concerts, other sports, boxing events. It has to be it has to have a multi-purpose. A stadium isn't just for the game every other week. It's got to be utilised in lots of other ways, commercially, banqueting suites, etc. The club have already changed a lot of things at our club in the ground now for a commercial reason. So honestly, I would say 70,000, no more. I think 75 is pushing it. I'd say I did 70,000 maximum, or maybe go for 65,000 with a room to being able to extend if need be. But that's just my ideas. Gary says, what do you hope comes of this meeting this week, Steve, with the Premier League looking to move closer to UEFA rules, which to my eye suits the bigger clubs even more than the present? As you know, Gary, from being a regular listener, I am so naive on what any of this really means. I'd love to meet somebody who knows 100% what it all means. People like Kieran Maguire and Ben Jacobs speak with a lot of confidence and make a lot of sense, but are they even right? I just want to see a level playing field, Gary. That's all I want to see. It's as simple as that, a level playing field. And I think that probably answers the question in the best way. Luton have found their feet and played some good stuff. Reminds me of Forest from previous season. David, you're right, mate. Yeah, and you've got to give them credit for what they did last weekend, mate. They were absolutely brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Played some wonderful football, scored some great goals, and made it very difficult for us. And I think that point, as I said at the weekend, that point could prove to be a very important point come the end of the season. Hi, Morris. I hope you're well. Yes, Macca, we do, but not as many. Obviously, just done events. Just did a big event with Keegan Waddle and Beardsley, mate, which was a big success. But yeah, I'm not as hands-on now, Macca. I don't need to be. Is the honest opinion. It's why I volunteer and do a lot of volunteer work during the week. But yeah, I don't need to do that. I'm very much concentrating on acting and writing at the moment. I'm busy writing a play. I do write a lot of poetry as well, which I don't really share a great deal of, apart from maybe on my Facebook, it's quite a personal Facebook these days. I don't have a massive amount of people on there compared to what I used to do. But yeah, I do the occasional event, Mac. It's got to be something that I really enjoy and I really want to do. Regarding St James's Park capacity, I think we could fill 70,000 seats each week without diluting the atmosphere. I mean, the atmosphere at all Premiership grounds is poor at the minute, though, Derek, isn't it? David, isn't it? I remember standing outside the Benwell training ground during the school holidays. Yeah, Derek, God, those were the days. I just did an interview with Rule Fox and who else? Liam O'Brien. I'll be sharing these towards the summer. It's to promote an entertainers event coming up. But yeah, he was talking about, Liam O'Brien was talking about Benwell. You'll enjoy that. Doug Hall did that during the school holidays too. Says Doug, do you have any new film projects in the pipeline? No, but I'm writing a play, David. So I'm doing that. I'm doing a creative writing course as well. So I'm enjoying the creative writing course. I'm keeping my hand in with that. No more films at this moment in time, but I could get a casting next week and that would be it, mate. Who knows? Like Gibbo, but you do need to tell him how to pronounce the name of place correctly. Who's Livramenko? Andy, God, that makes me laugh every time. It's become so funny, mate, that even at the pre-match talking that he did with Ando at the weekend, he called him Livramenko. So I will have to try and correct him on that, mate. I will have to correct him on that. We'll have a laugh about that on Thursday. Social media is poisonous. Whilst people can remain anonymous, then the trolls will always be there. But I tell you what, Jonathan, seeing as though you've gone down that avenue, I did write a poem today, because I write one a day. Where is it? It was more about fame, but it did include social media. Here you go. Fame's not all it's cracked up to be. A license for no privacy. Adulation, praise, respect turns to abuse on the internet. The price to pay for being famous, trolled by accounts with no names, faceless. Is it worth it? Worth the anxiety and pain? I'm not a narcissist. I'm not vain. In some cases, problems escalate, cyber stalking and face-to-face. Whereas fat cats grow with each post and tweet, reputations tarnished on the fake news beat. Where will it end, or is it too late? The genie's released. We must suffer our fate. There you go. Doesn't have to be perfect poetry. Anybody out there as well who might want to write a poem, just do it. It can be a poem, it can be a limerick, but honestly, it gives me a bit of it gives me a bit of a mental test as well. And it can be inspired by anything you see. It can be anything you see in the street, or at home, or on TV, or listen to on the radio, or whatever. It could be about a family. You know, I find it therapeutic to write a poem a day. I enjoy doing that. The same Welsh player wouldn't sign my son's autograph book until he was angrily confronted by the lady who invited me to the Bambra suite. Tim, yes, you must know the same person. Evening, Steve, you got here eventually. Hi, Borough fan, hope you're well, mate. Yeah, I'm here early, actually. I wasn't supposed to do this late o'clock, mate. I love Maltesers. No, says Doug after the story. If you haven't heard that, listen back. Sid is good crack, Tim. He's a really good lad, mate. He's a top lad. I think he's quite nervous about how you'll have taken to him. And, you know, he's quite critical of his microphone and stuff again today. And I don't think he'll mind us saying that. And I know Rob's critical of his own stuff as well. But they're a combination. Give it a listen if you haven't. Talk of the Tune. It was on yesterday. Give it a listen. If you've got a spare hour today or tomorrow, give it a listen. I'm sure you'll enjoy it. Les, good to have you on. Thank you very much for your comments. Brekkie Show is such a laugh, Steve. Shame it's on a daft o'clock for me. Yeah, it's just one of them things, isn't it? It's one of those things. We can't change the time, though. It is a breakfast show in the UK. Even Steve, how did he come by the theme tune by the Long Sands? I had to Shazam the tune to find out what it was. Do they gig locally? So Senegal Jim, I used to manage the Long Sands. And for me, it was probably one of the best periods of me promoting life, because I got a chance to promote a band. Didn't make any money from it, but it wasn't about the money. It was about trying to get the lads. They came to me. They had an album to produce. They'd been messed around, and I helped them get their album produced. I ended up producing 2 albums for them, and both albums are out there. So if you go onto Spotify and look for the Long Sands albums, there's 2 albums there, mate. So all the music on the shows are all Long Sands tracks. But yeah, what I'll do is, I did it once. I'll dig out the videos for the songs and I'll stick them on at the end of the show. So you get a chance to listen to the Long Sands each night and see a video. I'll do that, Jim. Probably next week now, though. Jed, I hope you're well, my pal. I hope you and the family are well. Very good show, mate. Don't mention much, but listen to your shows, such I enjoy. Jed, honestly, you and the guys and your family always mean a lot to me, mate. Sending big love to you and the family, Jed. I hope you're all okay. The seagull has landed. What the fact? Hey, Borough fan, honestly, that whole thing is hilarious. Hi, Steve. Are the increased ads during live due to your monetization setting on YouTube enforced? I'm happy to watch more ads if it helps your channel, so not criticism. Yes, mate. We've always had monetization on this channel. Once you hit 1,000 subscribers, the channel is monetized. However, YouTube have changed the way that they monetize it. They clearly are trying to make more money for themselves. But if you go on to, if you have a YouTube channel, you'll be able to see, you would click monetize. Ours is on the lowest possible amount of ads. If you remember about 6 or 7 weeks ago, they were in control of it and there was ads. Whereas now there's not as many, but yeah, it does monetize the channel. We do get paid for those ads going on. We get paid 70%, they get paid 30%, but you're talking peanuts. It's not a fortune we get for doing 7 shows a week, 4 weeks, 4 weeks in the month. For doing like best part of 30 shows a month. It's very little. And as I think when you guys make a donation, again, we get 70% of that. But that donation pot basically goes into a pot. And what I do is twice a year when the lads are over, usually the summer and usually the end of the year, I just take the lads out for their dinner. We'll go out, we'll have 5, 6, 7 bottles of wine, and we'll go and have a 3-course meal. So your money that the likes of Rob, I know Rob donates quite a bit, and a few of you donate. We never beg for it. If you want to do it, great. But we just stick that in the pot and we go and have a great night out. And I think the bonus about this show is we never plan them. Kev's in the chat there. He'll back us up. We never plan these shows. We just love doing them. It's on DAB Radio, Jonathan. So you just need to search Tune Radio and you'll find it on there. Good evening, Tom. As a member of the nufc Matters crew, you've given me a voice and allowed me to express my thoughts and opinions about the game of football. Also helped me mentally with others on the show. Kevin, thanks for that, mate. We did the same with Holly as well, mate. And people have dipped in and out. Some people have left for other reasons. I interviewed some controversial people on the show. People left and caused a big stir up about it, which I don't want to go into. But that's all in the past now. Other things have happened where people have felt that they couldn't stay, and that's life. It's the way it goes. The lads from Loaded all left because they wanted to set up their own show. I gave them this platform to build the show. But I don't hold grudges. I've not fallen out with people. Let them, live and let live and let people crack on. But Kevin, you're doing well. Your confidence has grown. You're off doing other shows now. And, I just wish you all the best. Hope you'll stay with us. If you do, you do. If you don't, you don't. And if you end up setting your own show up, good luck with it. But, you're part of the nufc Matters crew now. You've got mates that you didn't have 6, 7 months ago. And, people enjoy listening to you on the show. Tom says, heard on Radio Newcastle before Gordon's doubtful for the weekend and could miss a few games. I've heard 2 different stories today. Somebody saying that he's not as bad. Craig Hope said he wasn't as bad. So I guess we'll find out in due course what the story is on that. Anthony Taylor, oh God, is the referee, and VAR's Tony Harrington. Thanks for the members, Skip, much appreciated. Yeah, well, this is a new thing that YouTube have done. We can gift memberships, but all I can do is say, I have to click this button. It gifts your membership, and it randomly gifts whoever's in the chat that night. So what I've done is I've waited until the chat is really busy, and then it just gifts 5 of them. And I don't know who the next 5 people are going to be. So it's a random thing. I can do 10 a month for the next 12 months. So yeah, I'll continue to do that. And I guess the hope from YouTube's point of view is that, being a member for a month, that you'll take out a membership after that. But I think from my perspective, the one thing I haven't done is give you members content. So I think what I'll do is when the players' interviews come out, I will allow members to watch them first. I think I can do that. And we're going to be interviewing a few of the players over the course of the next few months, and maybe I'll promise that the members get a certain thing. I know most of the members aren't bothered; they just want to financially give us something, you know. There's also somebody suggesting that we do something like buy me a coffee, which is a lot better return for us. So maybe I'll set something like that up, and you know, maybe that'll help. Are you planning to discuss proposed changes to FFP and the professionals and how it will affect Newcastle? If we get enough information, David, yes, of course we will. We could have a Wembley of the North, says SJP Dave. Yeah, we could do. 68,000 against Chelsea. My granddad was there. Yes, yeah, that was the record. One of the best Premier League left backs is right-footed. Dennis Irwin played left back for over a decade. Nobody called Fergie Daffer playing him there. That's a good point, Kenya Mags. When England come to Newcastle, how will the ticket thing work? Would it go through a ballot? No, it's all through the England setup. It'll go on public. It will go on public sale, Tom, once the England Fans Club, etc. have had it. If you go to nufc.com, you'll find that. Multi-purposed with a sliding roof and a pitch, I hope. Talking about the stadium. David says, I've just downloaded the film To Be Someone. We'll be watching later. What part did you play? I play Nutter in that. I've got a part. I'm in it all the way through, David. That was a really good part for me. That's To Be Someone. Its working title was Quadrophenia 2. So that's most of the Quadrophenia cast playing the same parts. And I'm in that. Ray Burgess directed it. It's a really good film. Could yourself or Sid remember the band dance class from the 80s? They were totally underrated. Tim, you'll have to stick that when we do a live talk of the tune, mate. And I can't dance class. Sid, remember the band dance class? Yeah, I'll have to. If I remember, I'll text him. Evening, Steve. Talk of the tune. Great episode. Rock and Rob knows his stuff. Quadrophenia is a classic film and album. Thanks, mate. I'll pass that on unless he's still in the chat. What's your thoughts on the Lewis Hall deal? It's complicated, which is what Eddie Howe said. I genuinely love to think that he will do well. I think he's one for the future. Are they still going to work to see the long sands? I can't say yet, but they are going to play this year. They disbanded a couple of years ago. I'm trying to persuade them to do a third album. They are going to play live this year, but it hasn't been announced yet. So watch this space. It was starting at 8. John got in earlier. Cynical Jim says, Steve, I have YouTube Premium, so no ads at all. Do you still get paid for my views? I don't think so, mate. I don't. Well, I think we may for your watching. But if there's no ads, obviously it won't be as much as somebody watching without YouTube Premium. Sorry if you've discussed this already. What is the new FFP proposal that's rumored to be being discussed? I don't know, Mark. But we'll cover that probably Friday. Hi, Steve. Do you know of walk and football venues you would recommend for us aging mags? I'm recovering from the big scene. Would like to get my strength back. Ray, if you're living in the area, the only one I know 100% at the moment is Red Hoof Boys, and that's in the Teams in Gateshead. There's definitely one in Newcastle, but I'm not sure. But I'm sure if you Google it or look on Facebook, that could be the best place. I love doing the album room with you and Sid. Thanks, Rob. I'm not leaving, Steve. I'll be back on Monday, says Dunno. There you go, Dunno. You're getting some good feedback there, Rob. Would recommend anyone to become a Matters member. You get a good pack and the T-shirts are great quality. So difference being that the one that Ray's talking about, the £25 one-off fee, that doesn't make you a YouTube member. Obviously, that makes you an NUFC Matters member, and we do the monthly draw. I was always reluctant to do this, but John persuaded us to do it because I knew there would be confusion. But yeah, I mean, obviously the £25 one-off fee is great. But if you want to support us on a regular basis in the channel, just take the membership out, which I think is $1.99 a month. That's all we ask, and that just puts a bit in the pot for the lads at the end of the season. Donald says, I watched the film a few weeks back. I love The Who, even though I wasn't born when their music came out. England tickets, you can create a free fan group to get priority. Yeah, I saw that, mate. Great to see the lasses back at St James's, Tom. You're right. I think the shows have improved when people have gone on to pastures new. I would agree to a certain extent. Poppy, I think there's a few that were good and a few that weren't good, mate, without going into it. Dance Class were a good played pub club scene. White Heat were my go-to band. Still mates with Bob Smeaton. All right, David. You're in Bencham. It's Terry Ritson is the guy who runs it, Ray. It's Red Hoof Boys Club, and it's every Wednesday morning, and I think it's about 11 o'clock-ish. That's definitely on Facebook. Sorry, I'm not contributing. I have to consider becoming a member. Oh, thank you, Jim. You don't have to, mate. I would never beg people to do that. Stephen, Ben Jacobs booked in for a show. Enjoy them on a Saturday morning before the footy. Yeah, I'm going to get on the case, mate. It's been a couple of weeks. I've noticed he's been on a few other podcasts, but it's working. It's got to work between me and him. I was supposed to be going away this weekend or the weekend after, A, to watch football, B, to go off and see, go to another event. But the trains are all up at height, so I'll not be doing either now. So I'll try and get him on, if not this weekend, the weekend after, Stephen, 100%. Yeah, spot on, David. Mickey Moore's produced their album. Right, okay. Great watch, Steve, as always, says Tim. Hi there, Rob. Okay, guys, I've done an hour and 5 minutes. I'm going to go and get me tea, and I will be back on Thursday, slightly later tomorrow, 6:30. I will be on tomorrow night. So 6:30, me, Supermac, and Gibbo. Thanks for watching. Hit the thumb up, hit the like button. If you want to become a member, click the join membership, and give it a share. Share it to your social media as well. It does us a big favor. See you 6:30 tomorrow. Take care. Thanks for the questions.